In this lesson, we're going to talk about how to create ambient sound for our levels. Alright, so we've done a little bit of a lighting pass here just to kind of talk about the different types of lights that we can work with and a little bit of the basic information about those lights. And now we want to talk about setting a little bit of a mood with audio. And so looking at this, we can go into our audio folder, which I've already brought in here, and we've got this cave, and we've got a couple of different audio files that we can use here. To create ambient sounds, it's pretty easy to do. We just simply drag and drop that into the scene. Now, these files are WAV files, okay? And so you need to make sure that you're using the .wav format for those files. And once they're imported in, just like you would import any other asset, you'll simply drag and drop that into the scene. So I'm going to use this interior cave wet. We're going to just drop that into the scene here. And you'll notice that it gives us this icon. It's got a little check mark next to it. And it's basically, when it comes in, it's going to play automatically. Now, you can preview your sound, if you like, by just simply hitting play right here inside of the editor. And then you can stop that. Now, you can come in and you can adjust things like its multiplier and even its pitch. And then if you go even further down, you can start messing around with like classes and things like that. But that's outside of the scope of this. We have the attenuation, and so sound has an attenuation just like lights do, so they can fade. Once you get outside of those, you won't be able to hear them any longer. And then we have modulation, where we can adjust the pitch, the volume of that, the frequency of it, and really start to play around with some of the different sounds, just making some of those adjustments. And then we have activation. So this is basically telling it, does it play as soon as the level begins, or does it need to wait for something to happen? In this case, we're going to set it to auto activate. And then the rest is just beyond the scope of this course, and it's some of those properties that come with pretty much every game object that comes into the scene here. So here we have our ambient sound. We could come in and we could hit play, okay, to play our game, and that will bring it in. And then once you play the game, you should be able to hear that sound. So you can start to move around in your game here. Now, we don't have a player control. It's just kind of like a camera flying through the level. So you use W, A, S, and D in your mouse to look around, just like you would any other first-person game. So you should be able to hear that sound playing in there. Obviously, we don't have audio hooked up for the recording because we don't want that to really blare out and make a huge mess out of things. And so that's playing. Now, you can you have a couple of audio files here that you can play around. So whatever works best for your scene that you created. Hopefully you created one from the assignment. In the last lesson, it looks really messy through here. Figure out which sound works best for your project. Now, to exit outside of your play, you can hit escape, but sometimes if that doesn't work, you can simply hit hold down shift and then F1, and that will take you outside of mouse control, and then you'll need to come up here and hit stop. Okay. Alright, so there is our sound. You can play around with some of those parameters and just kind of see what kind of effects you can get out of that. So you can start to adjust those. You can override your attenuation and then go into your attenuation override and start to really play around with some of these different values here. So we can adjust the radius of that. You can see kind of how that works there. So once you're outside of that, you won't be able to hear it anymore. But when you're inside of this cave here, you probably want to make sure that that attenuation override is turned off. Now, if it's a world and you can go outside of that, what you can do is you can simply take the radius up, okay, and you can put it right to the end of the cave there. And so once they start to come into that, that sound will begin to fade. Now, you'll notice that there's this outside attenuation as well. And so it's going to be really strong. And so we'll want to take that fall off distance down. And we'll come up to like maybe around this area. So whenever the player comes in and they cross this threshold, they'll start to hear that sound being played. And it'll get louder and louder. And then finally, it'll be at the full volume whenever you go into this interior sphere here. Okay. All right, so that is sound. It's pretty basic for sound. You just drag and drop those in. Now, sound becomes a little bit more complicated once you start attaching them to other objects through blueprints. And whenever let's say you pick up an item, it's supposed to make a sound. Then it becomes a little bit more complicated than this. But again, this is a quick start. It's very basic, very beginner. We don't want to overload you with lots and lots of information. All right, so now that we've talked about sound, let's go ahead and talk about particles and effects in our next lesson.